Hi, this is Pat Iyer with Writing to Get Business podcast. I have just finished interviewing Doreen Cumberford, who is a person who can clearly define what it means to be a third culture kid, a term that I learned on this podcast. Doreen has spent most of her adult life being an expatriate and living around the world in multiple countries and cultures. She's written some books that relate to her adventures. Doreen, what are some of the highlights of what we covered in this podcast?
In the podcast, we covered the process of moving from an anthology to writing an ebook and then to finally writing a memoir and the transition to the next book. And the transition to writing your next book can be interesting and glorious at the same time.
And we also covered getting together a launch party, a virtual launch party, and
Yes.
a blog tour, a virtual book tour, tapping
Yes.
into the power of blogs, a topic that we have not covered on the show yet. And you'll be sure to want to pay attention to how Doreen focused on those two tools in marketing her book. COVID derailed her plans to have a camel at her launch party. And plus, the camel had inconveniently moved to an adjoining state, although you can get from
Oh, yes.
Colorado to Wyoming by car. I've made that trip to attend my friend's wedding anniversary, or her wedding ceremony, I should say, in the middle of a snowstorm in February.
Oh,
Doreen has lots of tips and stories to share, and you'll want to be able to hear her podcast. So tune in for next week's show for Doreen Cumberford as she talks about life in the Camel Lane. Thanks so much.